Hi friends, it's Terry Stewart, Independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Welcome to this month's Suite of the Month, which is the Beauty of Friendship. I'm really excited to show my project. So let's get started. So as I said earlier, the Beauty of Friendship bundle is the Suite of the Month. So we have this beautiful two-step stamp set where you can make trees, these kind of trees, kind of roundy trees, beautiful sentiments, thinking of you, believing you, and my favorite, friendships refresh the soul. Now this coordinates with the beautiful tree dies, and you can see that there's a bigger tree, branches, and then you can cut out the stamped image, and it coordinates with this image, with this, and this one with this one. There's and the smaller branch trees coordinate with the stamped images, and then you have some backgrounds and some um, layers to your tree. So this and my most favorite thing out of this this die set are these little birds where you can cut out two birds, and not only does it cut them out, but it makes an impression for the wing, so you get some depth to it. And that's my favorite because you can do two birds at once and you can have them going in opposite directions. So great die set. And this is my project, my first project, and I'm using mostly the stamp set for this one, the branch, the top of the tree, a shadow, and then the thank you. Now I'm going to change this up a little bit on the one I am going to show you. Whereas I cut this piece of white cardstock for the greeting, I'm actually going to use the die set for that. So let's get started. I'm going to bring in my trimmer, paper trimmer, to show you how I've made these cuts. So let's start with the base and then we'll do the smaller pieces. So I have a full-size piece of black cardstock, and I'm going to cut this to 7.5 by 9.25 inches, or 18 by 23.5 centimeters. So I will have to swing out my extended arm on this, and I'm going to cut this at 7.5. And this will be my first cut. And I'm going to rotate it and cut it 9.25. Let me do that the other way so I can keep my sticky on there. 9.25. And that is our base. And we're going to score this at 3 3/4, which is, you're going to have to check out my blog to get the metric because I don't know it off the top of my head. So I'm just going to score it in half. So if you're a metric, whatever half of your, I guess it's 9 centimeters, right? So I can do a little math in my head. Okay, so I'm going to score this. So our base is complete. And then our next layer is this In Good Taste, a DSP. Now I love this DSP, so let me do a little commercial break here. I've just gotten this pack and it's really fabulous. It has all these various textures, like painted textures. It has wooden elements and other, and the colors are tile-like, woven, bricks, cement-like, just all kinds of textures. So this is a lot of fun to work with. A lot of options. It's got so many different patterns. So for my base, for my trees, I'm using this, and I'm going to cut it at 3.5 by 9, which is 9 by 23 centimeters. So let me do my 3.5 cut. I'm going to have to move this over. So 3.5. by 9. So I'm going to rotate this. 9. And so this is my front layer. I'm going to make the same cut on for white. And this will be the inside piece of my card. So 3.5. And by 9. And then for my label, I'm going to use these scraps that I've just cut off. So you just need a piece of white scrap, and then this black piece, I want to cut it at 3.25. This was a scrap from my base, 3.25 by 2.5, and metric. I'm going to make that 1.9 by 6.3 centimeters, so 2.5. And this piece will be used with my lovely labels punch. 2.5 by 2. So to create this label, I'm going to use the black, as I said, with my lovely labels Pick-a-Punch, and I'm going to use the die from the Beautiful Trees dies that coordinate with this bundle. So this is the die I'll be using instead. And I'm going to make this bigger. So actually, I think I cut this wrong. So this should have been 1 inch. So I am going to bring back my scrap and cut this at 1 inch. So this is incorrect. This should be 1 inch, and 1 inch is, let's see, on my handy dandy centimeter thing, is about 2.5 centimeters. So let's cross that, 2.5. All right, so we're updated there. And let me bring in my emboss and cut machine. So I have my scrap of white and my die from the Beautiful Trees. And I'm just going to place this here and run this through real fast. All right, and here is our die cut that we will be using for our sentiment. So for this project, as I said, we're using this tree element, this distinctive element, the thank you, and the shadow from the base. Now this stamp set is one of the new reconfigured where you get the stamps and they're on acetate, and then you remove them from the acetate and there's a printed image on the inside. You can just lay your stamps right onto the case with the image behind it. I have found that this is awesome. It's so easy to get the stamps out that I need, and then easy to see which ones might be still on a block somewhere that I need to go and retrieve and place them here. So I'm using this image because, like I said, it's a distinctive, so it has 2 tones. It has the light and the dark when it stamps automatically, so you don't have to stamp on top of it. If you wanted to some darker elements, then you could go to this stamp and it would add even more depth to it. But for this project, I'm just sticking with this. So those are the 4 stamps I'll be using out of the Beauty of Friendship stamp set. I'm going to place those on my block, and by placing the block on top of the stamp isn't curved, because with these photopolymers, you can curve them and put them, if you wanted a circle, you could mount them in different ways. You can move them, but I don't want them. I want them to be without any kind of curve, so I'm just going to mount them this way. And then I'll pick up my branches on my big block. So I've used the rainbow as my guide for the colors. I went with the old Roy G. Biv that we learned in school, where the reds, the orange, the yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. So following that color scheme, I've got polished pink, mango melody, granny apple green, highland heather, and Pacific Point. And then I'm using crumb cake for the shadow underneath, pimento ink for my sentiment, and somewhere here I have soft suede that I'm going to use for the trees. I'm going to start stamping on my piece of DSP in good taste, which was 3.5 by 9 or 9 by 23 centimeters. And I am going to find the center of this piece and use my grid paper to help me with that. So if I find the center, so I have 4.5 inches on this side, 4.5 inches on this side, or 11.5 centimeters and 11. So anyway, find the center, and then with my soft suede, I'm going to start stamping my tree. So I'll ink this up in soft suede, and then I'm going to stamp this kind of with the same distance at the top and the bottom. So I really want to center it top and bottom and put my tree down. And then I'm going to stamp the one on the right, and I'm just going to leave about maybe a 1/2 inch. And so for our metric friends, that's about a centimeter. Am I right about that? Maybe 2 centimeters. And same thing, I'm going to try to get it about top and bottom center. So then I'm going to come to the left and do the same. And then I know where to place the remaining trees, just centering them between the other two. And if you don't get them perfect, I think it actually lends a little bit of interest. Like these two trees are closer together than these two, which I think actually adds a little bit interest. Now, I did get some ink on this, so I want to be careful. I'm going to wipe that away with my chamois. And then stamp my trees. All right. So that's all for the soft suede. Now I'm going to bring in my crumb cake ink and the shadow that goes underneath the tree. And I have not figured out which way this shadow goes, so I am going to just do the best I can. So I'll ink this up with crumb cake and then put the shadow in the bottom of each of my trees. I think it kind of grounds them so they're just not floating up in space. I love all the details in the stamp set. So there we go. And I'm going to start on the right and work. I'm going to start on the left and work to the right. And this is the place where you have to remember to clean your stamp between each inking. So hopefully I can do this without any trauma. We'll start starting with polished pink on the left. And the polished pink, it will stain your photopolymers, but as long as you keep them clean, the stain will not affect the ability to stamp. Now, when I look through, because it's photopolymer, I can look through, and I just want to make sure that all my branches are covered with some of the ink. So there, and you can see the two-tone where you have the lighter and the darker, and that's the way the stamp is made to do that. So now I'm going to continue on with my Mango Melody. Clean my stamp using my chamois off to the side here, and then just look through and make sure that all the branches are covered by the ink. Next is Granny Apple Green. Moving on to Fresh Freesia. I think this is one of the prettiest colors in the ink colors, this Fresh Freesia. Just really surprised at how much I like it. And then we come to our old standby Pacific Point. So this has been in the color collection for a while, and I forget it's there every now and then. Oh my gosh, yes, Pacific Point. I like that bright color. And then that's our final tree. Now I did do some decoration on the inside of my card. I put a tree on the inside, and then on the envelope, the slimline envelope, I put the same tree on the envelope. So let's get that done before we move on. So here's my envelope, and here's my piece of white cardstock. So, and the dimensions from the earlier cut. I'll be using my soft suede to create the base of the tree as we did on our front piece. So I'm going to ink this up and put this on the left side of my inside and on the left side of my envelope. We have crumb cake ink for the shadow underneath the tree. And the same for our envelope. Now, if I was going to do this again, I would stamp this tree a little bit lower on my envelope, just because now if you go to put an address label, the tree is going to be in the way. But when you make your own, you can make that adjustment. And then for the top of the tree, Granny Apple Green with our tree top. Put this in on top of all the branches. And then on our envelope. There, now we don't have to have a naked envelope, or and I've added a little decoration to the inside of our card. So just notice I pulled off the wrong stamp earlier. Thank you is the one I was looking for, not thinking of you. So do my thank you and ink this up with Memento Black. And then I'm going to just put this right here in the center of my die cut. So this is our piece of scrap, and you do want it to be 1 inch by 2.5. So let me cut that right now. Or for metric people, that'd be 2.5 centimeters by 6.2. So this is 1 inch. You see that's 1 inch, and this is so it fits into the Lovely Labels punch. And then 2.5 inches or 6.3 centimeters. And here is my lovely labels pick a punch. I'm going to open it up, and I'm using this decorative edge. And since this is 1 inch, it slides in that top groove, and then you can turn it over and make sure it lines up against the back. And it looks about even, so I'm going to punch it and flip it and do the same thing. Punch this, and about 2.5 inches is about the shortest, so you're able to grab it on the other side and make sure that it lines up against that flush against that back edge. Using my piercing tool, I'm going to poke a hole on each end. So I'll use this to kind of get a feel of where the hole should be. And I'm going to, if you see this indent that's closest to the white, I'm going to use that as my guideline, and then I'm going to go halfway. Pull that down, and then the same thing, using this, and then halfway. And I'm going to go into my piercing pad. So now I have my circle. I'm going to put this piercer through and kind of turn it around to flatten out those edges. All right. So now we can start assembling. I'm going to use my liquid glue and put this, adhere it to that punch. Set that, oh, get that a little, there we go. Set that aside to dry. And then bring in our base, which we cut and scored earlier. And a fold on the score line. And then using my bone folder, burnish that edge. I've cut 2 pieces of the Simply Elegant trim. One is at 6 inches or 15.5 centimeters, and the other one's at 12 inches or 31 centimeters. Because, and then we'll put these through that hole that we made with our paper piercer, and just even them out, even the ends out. And then the same for this end. And then I will use my dimensionals behind this sentiment piece. And I'm going to bring in my tear and tape. It would kind of be right like approximately there. So it's about 1 inch up from the bottom. And I'm going to turn it over. And I'm going to use my tear and tape to adhere the trim to the back. So I'm just going to rip off a piece and fold over this elegant trim and adhere it with my tear and tape. That's what's seen. There, I can remove these dimensional covers. And make sure it's kind of even. That, turn them onto the back side. Keep them about even. Go. And then I get a piece of tear and tape. And there. And I think that looks good. Now we can adhere this to our card base. And I'm going to lift these covers off my tear and tape just to give it an extra little adhere so it could adhere a little bit better to the front. And then I'll use my liquid glue. And you can see this beautiful texture wood grain on the back side of this DSP. It really is pretty cool. And then I just want to center this. Okay, and there's our front. And then we can place our inside. And I've left this, I mean, other than the decoration, there's plenty of room to write your thank you note to the special person you're going to send this to. And there we have our finished slimline card, coordinating envelope. Thank you so much for joining me. Please subscribe to my channel so I can bring you even more fun stamping projects. And until next time, remember, stamping is fun. Bye.